Yeah, hi there, Jed. And this is Michael, the testing and placement coordinator here in the English language program at California State University, San Bernardino. And I'm looking at your essay right now. Right? So, you're ready to take the writing placement test, and you want to know what you can do to score higher on that test, right? So, right now, I looked over at the actual rubrics. I'm going to put your score right now at 35 points out of 60, right? So the question is, if you look at 35 points here, this is going to put you at level 4, kind of in the middle of level 4 right now, which is not where you want to be, right? You want to be level 6. So you need to make some changes with your writing, I think, if you want to get higher than 50 points out of 60 on this, which puts you into level 4, right? So that's the purpose of the video. So what changes can you make in order to improve your writing? Okay, so the first suggestion is this paragraph here, it's kind of a counter argument, and I wouldn't put it in the body. If you want to put it anywhere, you can put it in the introduction before your thesis. That's my first suggestion. Okay, so let's take a look at the first paragraph. So everyone has their favorite cities. I'm just saying people. Because you say their, which is plural, right? So we want to avoid that pronoun agreement object problem. So people have their favorite cities. So if I have to choose my favorite city, I would choose Beijing. Even though some people think the traffic in Beijing is so horrible, even though some people think, I'm going to get rid of this. Some people think Beijing is horrible with its air pollution and traffic problems. And even though we should find an effective way to solve these problems, Beijing is still a city which I love. I was not born in Beijing, but I spent my happiest times there. I lived in Beijing for 9 years since I started working. Beijing has not... I'm going to put... So Beijing is my favorite city. I'm going to say, so Beijing is my favorite city my favorite city because of not only the historic buildings, but also a variety of delicious foods. Okay, so that's probably what I'm going to do here. So this way, you can spend the rest of these body paragraphs developing these arguments without having to worry about the kind of argument which didn't fit that well in your essay. Now, when you do writing practice next time, send me the actual writing prompt that you used to this essay, and that way I can tell you if you're directly answering it. But I can tell you here is there's no topic sentence here. You might say, first of all, enjoy Beijing because it has a 3,000-year history. And let's combine these two sentences together so you don't have this awkward. You can put so Beijing has a lot of historic buildings. And let's put a comma here. You're having a lot of short, simple sentences. This is going to bring your score down, right? So the most famous of which is the Great Wall. And then let's use this. We'll use a dash. And put built for defending against, I want to put here, its enemies. So I think we have it. So look at the sentence I did here. I combined them together, and it's a little bit more complicated. First of all, I enjoy Beijing because it has a 3,000-year history. So Beijing has a lot of historic buildings, the most famous of which is the Great Wall, built for defending against its enemies. Built for, I think usually for, I'm going to put a noun after this, for a defense against its enemies, or to defend against its enemies. So built for a defense against its enemies. I admire the greatness of the ancient builders Let's use the word architect. You need a little bit more advanced vocabulary here. So I admired the greatness of the ancient architects when I first visited the Great Wall. And I enjoyed, remember, you're talking about the past, because you got admired, we have visited, we have enjoyed, and I enjoyed taking photos, not for, of the Great Wall in different seasons. Instead of it, I'm going to say the majestic structure is also a good place for hiking. And then you bring up, it looks like the Forbidden City. Yeah, this is what I would, don't bring up an idea unless you can develop it. If you talk about hiking, then you need to go down that angle and start talking about hiking, and maybe one on a 5-kilometer hike or something like that, because you talk about hiking and then the next sentence after that, you're talking about the Forbidden City. So I'm going to get rid of this. I don't think this is going to help your writing at all, unless you want to develop it more, which you're not. Another famous landscape. Another famous landscape. I enjoy about Beijing is a forbidden city. And then we have to do this. Let's put a comma here and give you more advanced. A Chinese imperial palace from the middle of the Ming Dynasty to the end of the Qing Dynasty. And then in this case, we want to change this sentence, give you more advanced grammar. Located in the middle of the city, we'll put the palace looks more majestic looks more magnificent than in the movie. Yeah, you want to avoid the you point of view in this type of writing is going to bring your score down. I would recommend the first and the third person point of view. You're not talking directly to your audience, and using the you point of view is a little bit too informal, and it's considered an inappropriate shift in point of view. So that's considered a grammar error. So I'm changing it to tourists can see the place where the king lived and worked. Also a large, you want to say number, because you're saying of antiques or antique items, that's a count noun. A large number of antiques exist in this amazing place. You forgot your verb in there. Don't do that. You want to make sure every sentence has a subject and a verb. Anyway, see, the problem is you talked about how Beijing is your favorite city, then you start moving into why other people should visit it, and you're kind of shifting around a little bit here. I would put the time I spent in Beijing helped me learn, I'm going to say, traditional Chinese culture. I'm going to use this as an adjective. I think this works better here. From these historic buildings. Right? So let's take a look at this paragraph one more time. So first of all, I enjoy Beijing because it has a 3,000-year history. So Beijing has a lot of historic buildings, the most famous of which is the Great Wall, built for a defense against its enemies. I admired the greatness of these ancient artifacts when I first visited the Great Wall, and I enjoyed taking photos of the Great Wall in different seasons. Another famous landscape I enjoy about Beijing is the Forbidden City, a Chinese imperial palace from the middle of the Ming Dynasty to the end of the Qing Dynasty. Located in the middle of the city, the palace looks more magnificent than in the movie. Tourists can see the place where the king lived and worked. Also, a large number of antiques exist in this amazing place. Anyway, the time I spent, let's change this to past tense, in Beijing helped me learn traditional Chinese culture from these historic buildings. That's it. So that's probably what I would do here. Now here, if you say first of all here, then you have to say second of all. Okay, let's go to this one. So again, you can taste real Chinese delicious food in Beijing. That's a fact. But with this type of writing, Jed, you need to make arguable topic sentences, not just factual information. You're not just giving us facts about the city, you're framing an argument around why Beijing is your favorite city, right? We'll start here. First of all, no, second of all, again, we need some more vocabulary in here. You're not showing me that you have good, solid college level vocabulary. So instead of saying food, I'm going to say cuisine. So, and I'm creating a topic sentence here. Second of all, Beijing is one of my most memorable cities because of its legendary cuisine. And this paragraph is not as developed as the one before, am I right? So you want to show that you can develop at least 2, if not 3, really good paragraphs, I think, in the 30 minutes that you have for this writing prompt. So now what I want to do is I want to develop the idea of the roast duck, this one. Right, so I'm going to show you what you can do with this. All right, let's take a look at this second paragraph. So, and like in the other paragraph, you brought up something at the end but didn't develop it. You did the same thing here. You spent all this time talking about roast duck, and then you bring up fried bean paste noodle, but you don't really have enough time to develop that, so get rid of that. I'm going to say get rid of that. So here's what we've done so far. Second of all, Beijing is one of my most memorable cities because of its legendary cuisine. What did I do here? I created a topic sentence, which you did not have. Why? Because you're trying to frame all of these paragraphs as an argument. And both of the topic sentences, what do? They tie back to the historic buildings and the delicious food. So we want to make sure that we have an arguable thesis, and we have arguable topic sentences in those body paragraphs. One of my favorite foods is Beijing roast duck, a famous Chinese dish known all over the world. What did I do here? I'm using what's called an appositive. You can go to Google. Appositives. Reduce adjective clauses in English grammar. Make appositives your friend. Your grammar right now is too simple. If you want to score higher on the placement test, you got to show me that you know a combination of basic and advanced grammar structures. But you're not doing that. You're showing me that you know more basic grammar, not more advanced grammar. Now, what I did here, I tried to develop this idea a little bit more to give you more depth to this paragraph. Okay, so you say, in fact, I remember one evening when I was tired but very hungry after having worked for almost 12 straight hours. On that evening, I went to downtown Beijing with some friends to eat roast duck at a local, how about well-known restaurant. To make our meal more appealing, the cook slow grilled the duck for about 45 minutes, and then, to add some flavor, the cook sprinkled spring onions and sweet sauce on the duck. Also, we ate some delicious pancakes as our side dish. Eating roast duck Yeah, I'm going to put this in here too, because remember, you're talking about why you like Beijing, not just other people. So we put eating Beijing roast duck, one of my most favorite things about this city is the thing that every visitor who comes to Beijing must try. In this paragraph, we've already done something with, right? So then we get to the end. I'm going to give you some kind of a conclusion, I think. So to conclude, although I'm not a Beijinger, I truly love Beijing. Again, sentences are too simple. I truly love Beijing's historic buildings and delicious food. And then maybe we need to work on the conclusion just slightly here. Give me a quick. All right, then with a conclusion, you might say something like this. To conclude, although I'm not a Beijinger, I truly love Beijing's historic buildings and delicious food. I encourage any tourists who like traveling to visit this incredible city so they can learn more about the city's rich culture and so they can taste the famous Beijing roast duck. All right, so there we go. So I think we have it. All right, let's look at it one more time, and then I think we'll be done. So people have their favorite cities. So if I have to choose my favorite city, I will choose Beijing. Even though some people think Beijing is so horrible with its air pollution and traffic problems, and even though we should find an effective way to solve these problems, Beijing is still a city which I love. I was not born in Beijing, but I spent my happiest times there. I lived in Beijing for 9 years since I started working. Beijing is my favorite city because of not only the historic buildings, but also a variety of delicious food. All right, notice how the two paragraphs are similar in their development now. First of all, I enjoy Beijing because it has a 3,000-year history. So Beijing has a lot of historic buildings, the most famous of which is the Great Wall, built for defense against its enemies. So if you want to understand the sentence that I put together here, you need to understand appositives, first of all, in English grammar. You also need to understand participial phrases. Both of these are called reduced adjective clauses. You need to do this more in your writing. Why? Because it shows more syntactic variety and higher level writing skills. You say, I admire the greatness of the ancient architects when I first visited the Great Wall, and I enjoyed taking photos of the Great Wall in different seasons. Another famous landscape I enjoy about Beijing is a Forbidden City, a Chinese imperial palace from the middle. I'm going to say maybe built This is probably better. So a Chinese imperial palace built during the middle of the Ming Dynasty to the end of the Qing Dynasty. Located in the middle of the city, the palace looks more magnificent than in the movie. Notice what I did here. I'm trying to show you syntactic variety. I put that participial phrase in the beginning of the sentence. It really means the palace, which is located in the middle of the city, looks more magnificent than in the movie. In what movie? Or then in movies, you might say, unless you mean one specific movie. You say tourists can see the place where the king lived and worked. Also, a large number of antiques exist in this amazing palace. Anyway, the time I spent in Beijing helped me learn traditional Chinese culture from these historic buildings. Second of all, Beijing is one of my most memorable cities because of its legendary cuisine, which means food. Why did I put cuisine? Because your vocabulary is too basic. I'm trying to give you some different words that you can throw in here that kind of heighten the academic nature of the writing. One of my favorite foods is Beijing roast duck, a famous Chinese dish known all over the world. In fact, I remember one evening when I was tired but very hungry after having worked for almost 12 straight hours. On that evening, I went to downtown Beijing with some friends to eat roast duck at a local well-known restaurant. To make our meal more appealing, the cook slow grilled the duck for about 45 minutes, and then to add some flavor, the cook sprinkled spring onions and sweet sauce on the duck. Also, we ate some delicious pancakes as our side dish. Eating Beijing roast duck, one of my most favorite things about this city, is a thing that every visitor who comes to Beijing must try. Now, the other thing I want you to notice here is the story. I added this in here to give you some more depth to your idea. And everything in this paragraph is focused around the duck. Now, of course, you can talk about the other idea that you brought up, but if you do that, it doesn't have the depth because you're not developing that topic like we're doing with this one. So I'm trying to show you how to have some progression of ideas. To conclude, although I'm not a Beijinger, I truly love Beijing's historic buildings and delicious food. I encourage any tourists who like traveling to visit this incredible city so they can learn more about the city's rich culture and so they can taste the famous Beijing roast duck. Right? So this one, what I've written here, this will get 60 points out of 60 on the placement test. You are 35 out of 40. So look at the changes that I made. I gave you some suggestions to help you have more advanced grammar. I showed you how to write some good topic sentences to frame paragraph 2 and 3. I made a few grammatical corrections in your writing. Be careful about point of view. You shifted into the you point of view. I got rid of that, and I framed the essay more as the first and the third person point of view. That's what you want to do when you do the writing placement test. All right, so thank you for doing this writing practice.